Hello everybody and welcome to the ThePackHub's latest packaging innovation webinar. My name is Paul Jenkins, Managing Director of UK Packaging Innovation Consultancy, ThePackHub. And as always, I am joined by my colleague and Technical Director, Barry Pamplin, who will be chairing the questions and answers towards the end of this broadcast. Delighted to be joined today by Dr. John Williams, Chief Technical Officer of AquaPack. AquaPack is a UK manufacturing company specialising in a very interesting patented process for the production of a special polymer, which has a number of applications. John will be discussing their non-toxic, marine-safe and soluble hydropole development shortly. So what we're going to cover in the next 55 minutes or so. As always, a brief overview on the ThePackHub and our Innovation Zone packaging database. We're then going to split the sustainable packaging innovations as we tend to do into two sections. So we'll be featuring the first section, and then we'll be followed by John's presentation on AquaPack and their solution to the world's plastic pollution crisis. And then we'll hone in on the rest of the packaging innovations that we wanted to show you today. We'll then have details of our next event. Make sure you get your questions in. As always, most of us are quite familiar with Zoom now. We've been using it for the last 10 months or so, almost every day. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of the panel, which should be at the bottom, and you can ask away any questions, and we'll be delighted to try and answer them towards the end of the broadcast. You will get a link to the webinar recording post-event, and all our webinars and all our video content is available youtube.com/ThePackHub, and you can even subscribe to keep up to speed and get alerted when we post. So a little bit about the ThePackHub. We're a packaging innovation consultancy specializing in sort of four main areas. So technical support and project management work. So Barry and his team can help brands, retailers, suppliers, anyone really interested in progressing their packaging. We also do events and webinars. Clearly, we haven't been doing any face-to-face activities for the last year or so, but we're looking forward to getting back out there when COVID restrictions are lifted. We also do reports. So our latest Global Packaging Trends Compendium is out now, and we've done other reports on sustainability, packaging suppliers guides, refillable, etc. And last but by no means least is our Innovation Zone packaging database. So this is a searchable and easy to use resource. We now have over 4,600 packaging initiatives. We upload 20 a week, and these are from concept to in-market launch. Very much a global view. We translate the word packaging in 15 different languages across various different news sources, and it's a great way to keep teams up to speed, inspire and stay one ahead of the competition. These are some of the brands and retailers and suppliers that are current members of our Innovation Zone, so quite a varied selection. Just wanted to spend 3 or 4 minutes talking about the latest packaging trends. As I mentioned, we've got a new Global Packaging Trends compendium out now. And what we've done is we've revisited all the trends that we're tracking on our Innovation Zone database and sort of collated them into 9 sections. And I'm literally going to state each one very, very quickly, because the purpose of this webinar is not to go through specific global trends, but to cover the sustainable ones. So the 9 trends are naturally done, which is about compostable, biodegradable and bio-based packaging. Everyday engagement, which is about packaging that is designed to interact and engage with consumers. Lots of RFID, NFC type smart and intelligent packaging examples in that category. The online market has grown significantly in the last 12 months. So there's a section, a trend area around growth of online. Making life easy is about packaging that has added functionality, opportunities for delighting consumers and shoppers with packaging that has an added functionality. Materially change is about all those packaging examples that are switching from one material to another. We're seeing a lot of migration from plastic into other materials, for example, but it can go the other way as well. Protect and preserve, that's about sort of really how packaging is designed to prevent food waste. Reports of up to 50% of all food produced ever is not eaten globally. So lots of examples out there where to try and minimize food waste initiatives. Recycling, clearly a massive area, and that's not just recyclability, but also recycled content. And of course, we've got packaging taxes coming down the line that encouraging operators to have 30% recycled content, and they've got the Plastic Pact and that as well. So that's driving a lot of change for recyclable packaging. Getting noticed is about being visible on the shelf and in the consumer's hand, really. So there's examples, trend examples of packs that have a high impact. And last but not least is around refill and reusable packaging. We did actually a special report on this a few months ago, just to acknowledge the relative growth in this area. And we continue to see a lot of change with lots of refill and reusable examples coming to market. So they're the 9 global packaging trends, and in much more detail you can read about those in our latest compendium. So without further ado, let's look at some innovations. So as I said, we're going to split this into 2 sections. The first one, as always, a bit of a health warning caveat, or whatever you want to call it. We're not endorsing these as the best examples of packaging innovations, or the worst examples, in fact. We're merely reflecting what is going on in the market so that you can make informed choices about what's good and bad and whatever. So sustainability is quite subjective, and it can be quite subjective, and you can basis for one material over another based on certain criteria. So without further ado, these are the innovations that we'd like to focus on before we hear from John. So the first one is from DS Smith, and they're on the innovation trail again with a 100% recyclable alternative to plastic bags. The solution has the dual advantage of being accepted for conventional retail product pickup or for use online deliveries. Single-use plastic bag bans continue to advance around the world. So DS Smith have thought, okay, well, we're experts in the world of corrugated boxes. Let's make a solution that meets those needs. When I first saw this, I thought, well, why hasn't this been done before, I guess? But fair play to DS Smith for formalizing this as a proper offering. So it's got moisture-resistant fiber-based tote, which is part of their green coat solution, available in 2 sizes. It can hold 3 times the number of groceries that plastic bags can, and it's also interlockable as well. So it has some improved convenience for the transportation process. So yeah, that's a recent innovation from the innovation team from DS Smith. Next up, I mentioned at the beginning about the innovation zone, and we track sort of concepts to in-market examples, and I guess this is a good example of a concept in that this is quite a way away from ever coming to market potentially, and a lot of the bio-based initiatives are that way. So this is from India, from the National Institute of Ocean Technology, and they've developed a new bioplastic film made from marine seaweed. Now, seaweed is obviously in plentiful supply. The algae is inexpensive and is rapid to grow, just 45 days, using sunlight only. So no fresh water is needed or any chemical intervention. So there's obvious potential environmental benefits to that. The polymers are similar to plant-based versions used in food packaging applications that facilitate good oxygen and moisture permeability to help extend shelf life as well. Not only can the new bioplastic polymers biodegrade naturally without producing any toxic wastes, they can also be disposed of through ordinary and conventional food waste collection, apparently. Now, next up, this is quite an unusual one, and we have not included an innovation of this type before, and I was actually questioning whether it is actually a packaging innovation, but I think it's certainly worth acknowledgement. So this is Aunt Fannys, which is a Portland, Oregon home care brand. And they're undertaking a different approach to reducing their plastic impact to meet their sustainable packaging goals. So what they're doing, rather than introducing measures to reduce, reuse, or recycle their plastic packaging, the brand range is being certified plastic neutral in association with New York-based Repurpose Global. So for every product that they sell, the business is donating a percentage towards vetted programs that will collect and recycle as much plastic waste from the environment as they use in their packaging and operations on a one-for-one basis. So, and the fund works out the equivalent of around 25 cents per pound, or 11 cents per kilo for us people in metric, of the company's plastic usage footprint. And I guess it's a bit like carbon offsetting in that it's an alternative way to meet some sustainable packaging objectives without actually fundamentally changing your packaging at all. And everyone has their own views as to whether that's the right way forward, or maybe they should be doing something a bit more proactive. Next up, Singapore startup Reuse, that's W, so REWSE, has launched hand soap in a new format with the aim to bring low-cost sustainability to consumers. The soap in a tablet format is activated with water. The development team's inspiration came from the frustration experienced buying conventional liquid hand soaps and the potential environmental impact that goes with them. Obviously, conventional soaps have 80–90% water, and this takes water out of the supply chain. A set of these Reuse soap tablets sells for about £9.70 converted to UK currency. An assortment of 3 tablets combined with a reusable plastic bottle is also available for the same price. And unlike liquid soaps, which I said are about 90% water, the tablets take up much less space and weight to reduce associated freight and storage costs, and as well as the carbon footprint. The company apparently also plans to launch a multi-purpose cleanser that will also be in this tablet format. So we're seeing quite a few of these kind of initiatives where the water has been taken out of the supply chain, and it's definitely something that will continue to grow in prominence. Next, we're traveling to Finland, and this is a development from Aalto University based in Espoo, and they're developing wood-based foam materials for a variety of packaging applications. The Smart Foams research project is looking to commercialize their outputs. The foam development aims to create a solution with wood-like functional attributes such as strength, flexibility, and heat resistance. And it's a mixture of compounds, wood fiber, lamponite, and lignin can be combined to produce a foam that resists shock and humidity to potentially replace plastic. So obvious sort of secondary packaging potential applications there. The foam is actually edible, although it doesn't look particularly very appetizing. And the methodology makes it possible to produce foam from materials such as carrot, cranberry, and even beetroot powder, apparently. The packaging material is fully bio-based and biodegrades in natural conditions, and rather like the previous example I showed on bio-based materials, this is not going to be in market anytime soon. Next up, the hand sanitizer market, I mean, it's without exaggeration, has experienced significant growth over the last 12 months, clearly boosted by a big shift in consumer behavior due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. This has led to several new packaging innovations in this space, as you would expect, and we've covered those in the past. This Sanikind Mini initiative offers an alternative business model with the introduction of a refillable sanitizer sprayer made from recycled, what they claim to be ocean-bound plastic. It is available in a variety of different colors and comes with a clip for attaching to a consumer's purse, belt, bag, or even keys. So just building on the growth of the hand sanitizer market is a new refill initiative. Buying refills in bulk has the potential to save money for the consumer as well. And the Sanikind mini kit costs about £12.86, $18. which even they claim is 6 to 8 times the price of a comparable small disposable bottle of hand sanitizer. So this definitely comes at a price. Right, the penultimate innovation before we hear from John. Consumer interest in meal kits continues to expand. Again, another industry that has been given a shot in the arm due to COVID-19 restrictions. We're eating a lot more at home. So meal kits have certainly grown significantly. Many operators are looking to minimize the amount of packaging waste they generate. I've used many meal kits in the past, and they do tend to generate quite a lot of packaging, some of it which is not recyclable. So this Vancouver-based meal delivery kit service provider, Fresh Prep, who delivers to more than 20 municipalities across British Columbia, have launched a reusable meal kit container as a method to reduce their environmental impact. The business is minimizing packaging waste with the introduction of a new insulated reusable bag called Fresh Prep Zero Waste Kit. The new container aims to reduce the use of single-use plastic as well as provide a simplified and more orderly cooking experience for consumers. So I guess what when you get your next delivery, you then swap the old kit so that the operators can clean, sanitize, and use it again. And last in this first section is an innovation from South Korea. So paper company Hansel has developed a new paper packaging material for recycling the byproduct of cacao beans. The initiative has been conducted in conjunction with South Korea's 5th largest business conglomerate, Lotte Confectionery. The packaging material will be used for the wrapping of chocolate products. The beans are discarded after being used for chocolate ingredients. The bean waste is processed into powder and then mixed with a recycled pulp material to make a paperboard. The development project has been 7 months in the making, apparently. Through ongoing technology development, Hansel plan to introduce more products that contain larger quantities of the bean byproduct. So that is quite an interesting innovation from the South Korean market. Right, now over to Dr. John Williams. And as I've mentioned at the beginning, AquaPack is a UK manufacturing company specializing in a patented process. And they've got a really exciting non-toxic soluble hydropol product to offer a solution to the world's plastic pollution crisis. So I'm going to stop sharing. John, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Delighted to be here. One second, let's just do the mechanics. So, that one. This hopefully will work.
Excellent. 10 out of 10, that one.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you about Hydropol, which is AquaPack's polyvinyl alcohol-based material. We have a factory in South Birmingham, so it was built in 2017, and we have a number of extruders producing our Hydropol pellet, different formulations for different applications, all thermally processable for different functional attributes and different directions of the market. But this particular one, I just want to talk about its combination with paper and its relation to the increasing trend away from, if you like, 100% plastic materials in packaging towards combinations of materials and where Hydropol plays in this space. Just as a sort of start of a trend to set the scene, if we start looking at paper recycling rates, for example. I mean, paper is traditionally regarded as something which is obviously easily recognized, particularly by consumers. It has, you know, a good historical trend in terms of recyclability, particularly in uncoated, complicated versions. There is as you can see there, very good trend in terms of its recyclable material. What we are, of course, noticing now is that often, obviously, combinations with plastics and coatings have always been used, albeit clearly to a lesser extent, as appears to be the trend now in terms of going forward. Those materials, generally speaking, are rejected by the mill because they cause complicated interactions in their recycling facilities, contamination, etc., or they can't deal with it. So these materials are often just rejected and sent to RDF or landfill in some cases. So it's an interesting area as we move forward now in terms of generating a recyclable material, which is this combination of functionality and paper that is going to be directed, instead of at this traditional recycling MRF type structures, it's going to be directed ultimately at the paper mills, asking them to recycle this material. So as you can see, over 80% of paper and board packaging is recovered for recycling at the moment, but that's in relative terms simple, uncoated, uncomplicated material which the mills can cope with, quite well. They have a very sophisticated system for dealing with these things. So at relatively low levels of contamination, then you can move this thing through and clearly recycle. I mean, the game in town clearly for the paper recyclers is to recover as much economic fibre as they possibly can, and clearly that driver is increasing in terms of the drive towards recyclable claims and recyclable content from brands and the retailers. So we're going to end up with a situation where more and more material which currently goes elsewhere is going to be diverted in this direction. So what are the challenges around this? Well, clearly, as we see, on the right-hand side, recyclability of paper-based packaging in standard mills is high, but we do have already packaging at a relatively high level in real terms that is more challenging to recycle and recover. And as I said, most of that tends to be rejected at the front end of the mill, or if not before that, in terms of acceptability, because they simply don't risk some of these materials entering the system, because it reduces their efficiency, reduces their fibre recovery, etc., and also produces potentially reject and poor product at the end of their process in terms of recycled paperboard. However, of course, as we move into the packaging environment, we all know we need functionality. We need these materials which can, conventionally 100% plastics have answered in terms of things like oil and grease barriers, moisture barriers, gas barrier, sealabilities, etc., window patches, all these things come into play in terms of what is a functional requirement for typically food and non-food packaging, in actual fact. And also the message to the consumer in terms of how to deal with these and understand it, as in, most consumers will place these materials in the paper stream, and conventionally they are currently rejected, but this is where HydroPol starts to look quite interesting. So you have multi-material paper packaging is, as we can see, can be a main source of rejects and so-called stickies. So that contamination from things like adhesives and coatings, for example, which, if they penetrate the mill chemistry, can interact with the paper recovery system and produce essentially reject material, or certainly below par material in terms of what's acceptable to both the mill and their ultimate customers. So clearly we need to come up with systems which, if you're going to increase this tonnage of material that a mill can cope with and is accepted, and ideally one which gives them some sort of economic commercial advantage. So I mean, there's an example in terms of what we're looking for here. You've got as it says there, bag mixed material not currently recycled. You have in this case a polypropylene film which is adhered, glued to paper as in a strip lamination. The polypropylene film is, in that case, is about 6.3% of that particular construction, and is a source of rejects and potential microplastics if you start to try and attempt to process this material through. So, conventionally these things are rejected. The other interesting point is adhesives, of course, are also a key part of this in terms of what you use. Adhesives are there to obviously adhere the material, but by doing so, they can lock in fibre. And the choice of adhesives is key here. in terms of what you may be looking at. And we're about to actually produce a white technical paper where we did a complete review in combination with DS Smith, actually, of looking at different adhesive types and their effect on fiber retention and fiber recovery. And it is quite interesting because it's often a forgotten part of the travel of the technology here in terms of what you may wish to combine in terms of a laminate or even an extrusion coating. So again, what are the legislative changes complying with this changing landscape? Currently, there are no universal accepted standards in the EU for evaluating repulpability and recyclability of paper-based packaging. However, there is a lot of work going on with CEPI, the European Industrial Paper Association, and also our own in the UK, CPI. And HydroPol AquaPack have been working closely with DS Smith and other paper guys, and also CEPI and CPI particularly, and into OPRL actually to try and get better definition around some of this. So we've shared a lot of our internal data, a lot of our internal work around things like fiber retention, fiber recovery, and stickies, adhesives, etc., to help the committees hopefully, perhaps refine some of the things they've started to look at. So again, they are very aware that from their own perspective of the paper industry, this is something that they need to look at. And we've all seen the talk around percentages of acceptable plastics, etc. There is a nervousness around that in terms of even at a low percentage, if you have a very increased volume of material coming through to that system, they may not be able to handle it. So designing out plastics, I mean that in a positive sense, as in, well, what other materials can we use in combinations with paper to give us back that functionality? So working with the paper and board recyclability guidelines, which were first came out in January 2020 and are being constantly refined at aspirational targets, etc. Looking at the devil in the detail around sort of coatings, adhesives, plastic extrusion coatings and laminates, etc., is key. And also, the whole range of what alternative materials may be available to help them do this is a key part of what certainly we're involved in, and obviously what the industry is driving for, backed up, of course, in the drive by the brands and the retailers to want to use these materials. Again, CEPI. So CEPI is key because, interestingly, there was a slight disconnect between the direction of travel for the UK and what was happening in Europe. So Italy had a very good standard around where they concentrated less about the percentage of plastic, for example, and more about the fiber recovery. So I think there's kind of a meeting of minds coming together now in terms of it is important that we don't end up in a situation where we just, for example, increase the gauge of paper just to cope and reduce the total percentage of plastic just so it meets a guideline, thereby making something that in essence is not sustainable in reality and may also cause other problems. So we have to be careful. I think all these things are starting to be taken into account. So as generic example, corrugated case manufactured there. So that's, I think, a DS Smith site, if I remember correctly. It's just important to understand, I think, the steps that are involved and the complexity of a paper recovery plant in terms of not only the front end sorting, the actual repulp bath itself in terms of what's happening, the primary treatments and the meshes, etc., recovering material, all are clearly designed to maximize fiber recovery, minimize contamination, and of course anything which is captured in the wastewater treatment system and their runoff system has to go through their biological treatment systems, often AD or aerobic activated sludge or a combination of both, and you have to watch COD and BOD levels as well, because they have legal obligations. So any additives, any materials going in have to meet these requirements. So fully soluble and biodigestible barrier systems, the impacts of that is key. We have also a white paper which is available if anybody would like to see it. Details all this. So again, what are we aiming for here? Well, we clearly want defiberization in standard pulping conditions. We need high fiber yield. We need reject content out of the picture, non-dispersible flake content, absence of stickies, and a homogeneous finished product is what the guys are looking for in terms of the paper side. So really have to be careful about all the things at every level. So absence of toxicity, biodegradability, no wet end impacts in the chemistry in terms of their process, compatibility with their current systems, etc., and no potential to generate things like stickies and micro-stickies. So our solution for this, our AquaPack solution for this hydropol, so again, a thermally processed material, fits into this circular economy drive. We combine very well with paper, but we also combine very well with conventional materials and also biomaterials in all sorts of thermoplastic forms, from injection molding, fibers, non-wovens, all the way through to films, laminates, coax, and direct extrusion coatings. So again, it's about giving you functionality in combination with ends of life, which is provable, and also, if it does escape into the environment, doesn't have so much as an impact. Again, examples there of just very sort of simplified examples of our functional materials. So Formfill and Seal, for example, is there, and you've got tape materials, you've got various packaging, you've obviously got clearly bags is an obvious one. But this very much is a concentration around laminates and direct extrusion coating. So example of our thermally processable PVOH pellets, they come in different forms, different solubilities, all the way from ambient solubility all the way up to you need boiling water to do it. And you can see some of our development and technical partners underneath. That's just a snapshot. There are a number of others, but those are certainly key to our developments. This has been developed over a 10-year period. We have nine patents in process at the moment, three already granted. And again, the key thing is the material to be used in existing processing machinery. So to produce some of the things you see there, and you'll see cellulose there. It has a particularly synergistic link with cellulose in terms of its chemistry, which makes it quite interesting from the perspective of the drive to the market at the moment. And so some of the just sort of basic properties, just so to give you a flavour of that. In film form, for example, gauge for gauge, we're about 3 times stronger than LDPE. It's non-toxic. We've got a lot of information around marine and soil toxicity, should anybody want to see that, and test methods at independent laboratories that demonstrate that. We also did some work, interestingly, partly because of COVID actually, on pathogen dwell times. It's a hydrophilic material, and pathogens genuinely do not like to linger on this material in comparison to hydrophobic materials like polyethylene, for example. Naturally anti-static, which can be useful. Hydrophilic, clearly, as I said, water soluble at different ranges. Marine safe, again, that test data is available. It doesn't develop harmful microplastics because the hydrophilic nature of the material doesn't attract toxins to it as it starts to break down. Inherently biodegradable, interestingly, both in aerobic composting conditions, for example, and unusually for a polymer, anaerobic systems as well. So it does enable constructions of different combinations with other materials, giving you options to deal with it either in recycling or in biodegradability. So here's an example of a form, fill and seal. Hydropol can be run as a monofilm or a paper laminate with both vertical and horizontal systems, and give you that strength and puncture resistance, grease resistance, and gas barrier. Packaging can be dissolved safely in hot water if you want it to, but clearly that's not something we're going to sort of clearly push forward. It needs to go through the conventional systems, but it is an option to do. And consumers can use the packaging for food waste and dispose of their food waste, for example, if there are food waste collections available to them as a secondary option. The key thing is it can be recycled in a mixed paper stream, and the fibre can be released back into that paper unit. without any of the contamination or problems associated with it. You know, we've done a huge amount of work with the paper guys and the S. Smith, particularly in this area, improving at every stage of the repulping process, all the way from front end sorting, all the way through to their repulping baths, through their mesh screens, through the chemistry of the mill, and ultimately their effluent plant, to say that you do not have a problem with this material and you get 100% fibre recovery out of it, either in laminate form or extrusion coating. So there's a lot of potential here in this area. We have fortunately had a number of prizes. The latest one, we got a Rushlight Award for recycling, which is always welcome. As I say, if you want further information on this, then please contact me. Email at info@aquapackpolymers.com, or you can go on our website. We have an awful lot of information coming, but please feel free to contact us and request that. And if anybody wants to see the material, data sheets, or run trials, then very happy to help you with that. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present. Thank you, Paul. I don't know whether we're taking questions or...
Hi, it's Barry. I'm not sure where Paul is, so let's take the questions that we've got lined up.
Sorry, I was on mute. That's all it was. Sorry, I will share my screen. Apologies. I was talking away, and obviously you couldn't hear me. Okay, can you confirm you can see my screen?
That's fine for me, Paul.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Right, let's crack on with the next innovations, and then we'll an opportunity to ask John some questions. I can see we've had quite a few in the Q&A panel. Okay, so next up is dairy and food company Vigor, which is the 6th largest dairy company in Brazil. And the business has switched to their Simples yogurt brand into paper packaging. The first time this has been done for the product category in the country, as well as the first initiative posted in our innovation zone. So we've not covered this before. The alternative to plastic packaging is claimed to be biodegradable and from renewable sources. The material has a higher level of recyclability in the market than the plastic it replaces. It is estimated that approximately 15 tonnes of plastic will no longer be used in a year. The packs also have a QR code to provide consumers with information about the brand and distribution points. Next up, from General Mills, again, one of many brands owners working towards delivering 100% recyclable packaging by 2025. A small part of this mission is through their Nature Valley crunchy granola bars that are now available in, they say, fully recyclable. And this is one of those challenges about chicken and the egg, because they can be recycled through how to recycle centres in grocery stores across the US. So the country doesn't have the infrastructure yet to collect curbside, but it is effectively recyclable, but obviously only in a certain way. They're keen to put messaging on the box and on each individual wrapper to explain exactly what should happen to the packaging to be recycled in the grocery store drop-offs. The wrappers themselves have a slightly different look and feel, but most consumers apparently are unlikely to notice. Right, this is an interesting one, and might argue whether this should warrant inclusion in a sustainable packaging review. But I think it's important to show you what's going on. So this is a new material klaxon alert, if you like. We've never featured a piece of packaging made from concrete before. So this is French cosmetics brand La Creme Libra, and they have a new refillable skincare product. So it ticks a box in terms of sustainability from the refill perspective. But they've created a jar made of natural concrete. It is based on sand, cement, and water, and can be refilled time and again with skincare capsules. The jars cost nearly €20 €20 for 50 mil, and are available online. And I think they're also in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign to try and get that more. So I posted this on LinkedIn a week or two ago, and there was a few comments, mostly negative about that as a claimed sustainable initiative. But I think it's important to reflect what's going on in the market. Next up is from last time's webinar contributors, Mondi, and they've created a recyclable packaging for vegan products, Norwegian food company Orkla. The food manufacturing brand have worked closely with Mondi to create the packs for their Frankfurt plant-based Tex-Mex range. It's using Mondi's barrier pack recyclable solution, which uses a high barrier monomaterial, which makes the lightweight packaging fully recyclable without any compromise in terms of look and feel or functional performance. Metal-free high barrier laminate means that it is recyclable and still runs on the existing machines at full speed. Next up is Fazer is one of the largest businesses in the Finnish food industry. The business has been on the development trail again with the introduction of a bread bag made partially from oat hulls derived from the oat milling process. This unique packaging innovation was apparently years in the making, and they worked with Tampere University of Applied Sciences, as well as the Natural Resources Institute in Finland and the Design Forum. So a real team effort. And the new material is apparently 25% oat hulls, and the pack can be recycled as cardboard. The oat hulls used come from their Fazer's oatmeal. The bag is resistant to vapor to help keep the contents fresh. 11 versions were developed to create the final paper suitable for food contact. Yeah, so that's quite an interesting one that has created quite a bit of interest. Right, the penultimate innovation of the day. This is from P&G for their Secret and Old Spice brands. And I mentioned about the refillable market being one of the 9 trends. And here's another good example. They're the first major brands to introduce all paper deodorant initiatives last year, and they're following that success with a limited edition pilot, expanding with this new deodorant formula. It incorporates a push-top design. The paper tubes are fully recyclable. Consumers can crush the empty paperboard and place the packaging into their recycling bin. Available across the US in Walmart and Target and Walgreens and places like that. The solution is in price for the mass market and is said to be the first refillable antiperspirant from a major brand. And last but not least is another P&G initiative for their Gillette brand. The research influence move to a recyclable paper-based material has also been designed to deter shoplifters, in that the top of the pack is still very difficult to rip open. Plastic obviously has a big role to play in preventing in-store theft, so moving to paper can often be a challenge. The move to cardboard packaging is anticipated to eliminate more than 66 tons of plastic per annum. The fully recyclable new packs are made using responsibly sourced paper. The change from plastic packaging comes after their shopper research found that recyclable paper was one of the most important determinants in the decision to purchase bathroom products for 55% of respondents, which seems incredibly high. The move is part of Gillette's broader sustainability commitment to use fewer resources. And they've also, just out of interest, reduced their line range from 11 down to 8. So that's it from me. Now over to the Q&A. So Barry, over to you. What kind of questions have we got?
Hi, we have a number of questions. I'm going to start grouping into a few groups. Some around the sort of safety of the material and what does it compost into. So could you give us some answers in that area?
Yeah, we obviously, as always with composting, it depends on what form the material is in. So clearly, to claim compostability, it's the time versus the biodegradation against that cellulose standard. So we've tested hydropol films, for example, to EN 13432 and ISO 17088. So the fully hydrolyzed version, which is what we would call a hot water soluble, so greater than 80 degrees centigrade solubility, will meet the requirements of that compost at 15 micron films. And then as you come down, you can get down to 20 and 25 micron films. But bear in mind, of course, as I've said, it's 3 times stronger gauge for gauge than LDPE. So there's actually a lot to play for there. What does it biodegrade into? Well, it goes through the same cycle as a normal compostable product. So you get fragmentation leading into biodegradation and ultimately carbon dioxide and water.
Okay, we've got a group of questions around the sort of barrier properties of the film. Firstly, how do you get a moisture barrier if the actual film is hydrophilic or the material is hydrophilic?
Yes, on its own you don't. Clearly, as you would know, as a hydrophilic material, we have a high water vapor transmission rate. So in order to, if water vapor transmission rate is important, then there are coatings or combinations of other materials available. For example, we've done coexes with conventional polyethylene, for example, enabling that coex to be much easier separated. But that obviously the PE gives you the WVTR, and we give you grease barrier and oil barrier, etc., oxygen barrier, for example, in that combination. But you also do it with bioplastics, PLA, some PLA, formulated PLAs and some BHAs also work quite well in those constructions. So yeah, on its own, we don't have high water vapor. We have high water vapor transmission rate.
That leads into the question. There's been 2 or 3 specific ones about what are the oxygen barriers and moisture barriers that you can achieve.
Oxygen barriers, typically, as you would expect for this type of OH containing polymer, are pretty much the same as EVOH. Normally with Polyvan alcohol, because it's in typical film form, for example, it's cast from solution. So the normal performance of that material cast from solution is slightly lower in its reaction to oxygen, for example, oxygen barrier versus EVOH. Our thermal process, it does change the morphology of the polymer, such that once you extrude it into films or coatings, for example, you get better oxygen barrier than you do out of cast EVOH films, and you are about the same as EVOH, and including the resistance to humidity. As you raise the temperature and humidity, EVOH is obviously clearly more resistant normally than PVOH. In thermally processed hydropol material, PVOH, you are following the same lines as EVOH.
Hi, John, are you still there? You just dipped out a little bit at the end.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you'd finished or you dipped out completely. It sounded like you were just finishing. So now there's a group of questions around the sort of suitability for use. Is it suitable for use with food products with high water activity, for instance, meats?
Not on its own. I mean, it's from a toxicity and migratory angle. It's very good across a whole range of food materials. But anything where you've got a high moisture level in the food, then hydropol on its own would not be suitable in those applications if you're looking to retain the water in the material.
Okay, then continuing the range of uses, we've got a variety of questions from: is it suitable from frozen through cold, ice cream tubs through to ovenable? Where are the boundaries for what this material can be used for?
Deep freeze and fridge conditions are actually fine. It works very well. We've done several trial tests with a number of brands and retailers in this area in their packaging, and that's gone through their test methods quite well. As has so ice cream again actually is quite good for that. So where people have wanted to move, for example, towards coated board for ice cream away from direct plastic materials, that's looking very promising as well. So there is a wide spectrum of food materials that it's very, very good at. But clearly, if you're looking at something like wet meat or wet fish, then on its own, no.
Okay. And then you've said about cold and frozen and refrigerated, moving up into ambient. What is a sort of upper temperature limit for the films?
Yeah, it will resist up to around sort of 250 degrees centigrade. So as a potentially ovenable product per se, it depends obviously what you're cooking in it, I guess. So if you're generating a lot of steam, for example, you're going to soften the material, but the actual temperature resistance of the material is quite high.
Okay. So it would be useful for ovenable, sort of fairly dry products.
Sure. Yeah.
There's been a clarification around the decomposition question. What would you get when it dissolves in water? What would be the byproducts?
So when it dissolves in water, if you think of it as dissolving sugar or salt in water, so you end up with a sugary or salty solution. So you end up with, in essence, Polyvan Alcohol solution. So there's no breakdown product per se when you put it into water. It's just a solution of the polymer. Where that comes to be useful is where that solution then enters, say, a wastewater system, for example, that has an aerobic treatment or an anaerobic treatment. Then the polymer in solution breaks down faster than a solid material entering that environment.
Okay.
But it biodegrades. Yeah.
And then I think one final question was, with the example with the yogurt, what was the top lidding material? Was that also paper?
I can't go into too much detail in this because it is subject to an NDA for that particular application. We did a coex with Hydropol and another material to produce the lid for that.
Okay. Yeah, I think people always spot the NDA ones because they're so different. Right, I think that's all the questions for yourself, John. But there's one here that's just popped up for you, Paul.
Okay.
What was the name of the French brand of the concrete jar, please?
I think it was something like, I'll send it, Creme Libra or something like that. You're asking a lot of me to remember each brand name. If you just give me 5 seconds, I can actually go online and search on our database and come up with it. And whilst I do that, I will continue, and I'll get the answer very, very shortly. It is La Creme Libra. So I was correct in my first.
Yeah, one of the participants had answered it for you as well on the chat.
Okay. Right. Well, it just proves how fast our Innovation Zone database is that I was able to find that so quickly. Okay, thank you very much, Barry, and thank you very much, John, for not only your excellent presentation, but for the number of questions that you got. I think that's a reflection of the high interest in your solution. So thanks again for that. I will be sharing John's contact details with the outputs, which will include a recording of this webinar. So you will have access to be able to contact John by email and by phone. We've also just recently recorded an interview with John, which is now available on our YouTube page. So it's a 15-minute interview where John further explains what the AquaPack solution is. So please, by all means, have a look at that. Yes, so thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate your attendance and your attention. We look forward to you joining us for a future PackHub webinar soon. Our next one is on Thursday, the 8th of April, where we'll be looking at biodegradable packaging innovation specifically. So stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.